So we'll kick things off. Mike, do you want to start the questioning?
Premier, I'm wondering on the removal of Judge Zimmer from the Desmond inquiry. As you probably know, Judge Zimmer sent a letter to the various legal counsels saying, I'm close, I'm almost done here. Are you concerned that by not giving him at least one more month to try to make good on that pledge, that you're effectively making these families wait potentially months or even longer to get a final result here?
Well, what I would say is obviously this was not a decision that was taken lightly. This is a very difficult decision. The families, Nova Scotians, Canadians, everyone's been waiting far too long for this report. Our only interest is in getting the report, getting the inquiry done. So I think I understand that Judge Zimmer has said he was within a couple weeks. What I would say is we really, when we looked at all the history here, we looked at the facts, we really had no reason to believe that that was the case. We'd actually heard that a couple times already. There'd been 4 extensions. And I think at least in 2 of those extension requests, the wording was along the lines, I hope to be done within this time. It's close. I mean, certainly this was an ongoing thing. So the inquiry, the final submissions were made 15 months ago. We need the report. We need to get it done. The government made the determination that the quickest way to get a report was to appoint somebody. So I'm really pleased. There's been a new appointment, Judge Scotia, high person of high integrity, and has hit the ground running. And I honestly believe that that's the quickest path to the report.
How did anyone approach you, whether it's legal counsel for any of the families or anyone else, approach your government to say, you got to make a change here? Or how did this ultimately come about?
I think what I would say is I'm actually very shocked because I've heard some of the and seen some of the commentary. Thank you from some of the council involved. Where were they for the last year in demanding that this be wrapped up? I mean, to come now and say, well, you know, what the things they're saying is pretty surprising, but. They had zero influence on the decision. The decision was purely made because 4 extensions, time was passing, and we'd been down this road before, as I say, in at least 2 of the situations with somebody saying, just one more extension. It's close. It's close. We're hoping we'll get it this time. How many times do you do that to the families before you say, no, we need to take some action here and get this done?
I spoke with some of the sisters of Lionel Desmond yesterday, and they said they weren't consulted on this, and in fact they found out about this Judge Zimmer being I guess removed by victim services, and they feel kind of blindsided by it. They're calling for Zimmer to be brought back in. They said he's been with them the entire way, through the tears, through the months, through all the hurdles that have happened. They're even going as far as saying they believe this is a case of political interference, but they want Zimmer back in. What do you say to the families?
Yeah, so certainly, I'm sorry they feel that way for sure. I mean, it was not the intention to add any additional stress, any emotional pain to the situation. Our interest is in getting them the report. Our interest is in bringing the inquiry, to get the recommendation so we can move forward. We didn't see a path there with Judge Zimmer. The history was not the history was not indicating that in any way. This was, the words may have said the report is close. We'd seen those words before. The actual actions, the true history of the situation, didn't lead us to believe that it was close to report. And look, the absolutely no on political interference, not a chance. The act is very clear that a new judge can be appointed. That's what's happening, and the reality is as well in this province, no judge can sit past the age of 75, and we weren't going to amend that act for one person. We tried to work through this. There's a number of extensions, and now the time is there to move forward and get the report finished, and the new judge has been appointed, and it's a great appointment.
What are the timelines now then? If we're not going to go back with Zimmer and allow him that maybe a month or so. What's it looking
Yeah.
like? How soon do
Well,
you want this?
first off, I don't accept the maybe a month or so. I certainly don't accept the within a couple weeks. I just don't accept that. There's actually that's not based in fact. It's not based in history. So I just categorically do not accept that. But you know what we'll do now is, you know, I firmly believe that the quickest path to a report is the path we're on. You know, and it might not be an easy, you know, might not be easy to accept, and I accept that it's been stressful at a time when we did not want to add any stress, for sure. But I firmly and honestly believe that the quickest path to report is the path that we're on now.
There will be a report. The family's worried that there won't be
Oh,
now.
absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Any timeline?
Well, you know, the new appointment's there, hitting the ground running, so we'll confirm up some timelines, but there's a lot, you know, it's a continuation of a process. It's not starting over, it's just bringing it through to fruition.
Premier, Wednesday is the deadline to apply for disaster funding related to the isthmus. I know that you obviously have you and Premier Higgs have a disagreement with the feds about how this thing should be funded, but do you intend to apply for the money that's on the table by Wednesday?
Well, this is a significant issue. I mean, we have to move forward on this for so many reasons. It is a federal responsibility. It's disappointing that to date, at least, they've taken the position that it's not their responsibility. It is their responsibility. So, you know, we'll be pursuing that. I actually have a meeting. Premier Higgs and I will meet with Minister LeBlanc on Monday in Moncton. This will be one of the primary topics of discussion. There will be others, but this will be a primary topic of the discussion. I mean, $35 billion a year in trade across that piece of land, so it's really significant. So I'm hopeful that you know, that the meeting on Monday is productive. But I guess what I would say is, you know, the work will be done. But we'll work with the federal government on how that's paid, and if we have to take them to court, which that would be awfully disappointing. But if we have to take them to court, we're certainly.
I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying here. Are you saying that you and Premier Higgs will make a final decision about whether or not to apply for the money that's on the table after this meeting on Monday? Or are you saying that you're going to apply for this money, but if you have to, you're going to go to court to try to recoup any money you may have to put in to get this work done?
Yeah, I think we'll make that decision. We're prepared. We're obviously preparing for whatever outcome falls out of the meeting. But our main interest is getting the work done.
So, Premier, just to sort of further clarify, the meeting's Monday, the deadline's Wednesday. Are you prepared, if things don't go your way and Minister LeBlanc doesn't offer any more money, are the two governments, have they done the work that needs to be done to make that application by Wednesday?
The work is done for the application. The application, filing that application is not a good outcome for Nova Scotians. It's not a good outcome for Nova Scotians. It's not a good outcome for the country. This was actually, you know, we discussed this at the Council of the Federation with the other premiers, because, you know, there's you know, some of these nationally significant trade corridors, nationally significant, you know, infrastructure, ways you move product around. The federal government, you know, what they're signaling here with their stance on the isthmus specifically, I think is just, it's symptomatic of the way they view their responsibility to maintain nationally significant infrastructure, to have the foresight to invest in nationally important projects, roads, trains, energy. So, you know, my message to the premiers was to watch this file very closely, because it sends a strong message about how they feel. This is their responsibility, and if they force Nova Scotia and New Brunswick to go to court and apply under the existing programs, well, that's money that can't be used for another, you know, for a whole series of other projects that are important. So it's penalizing people in those areas, in other Nova Scotians. So, look, I'm hopeful that, you know, we can have an adult discussion about responsibilities with the minister on Monday.
Are you also going to raise the Atlantic Loop at that meeting?
I'm sure the Atlantic Loop will come up for sure. Yeah.
Have there been any talks, we talked to you about the Atlantic Loop a couple of weeks ago. Has there been any progress on that file in the last couple of weeks?
The file is active, I would say. But, my concerns remain the same. I won't, what is on offer from the federal government, it's not hard to get to a scenario where if we were to accept that offer, we could bankrupt our province. And I'm not going to do that.
You expecting to see a new offer on Monday?
I don't know. I mean, I hope so. I'll remain hopeful, but we've certainly advanced the arguments. We've laid out a common sense position, so I'm hopeful that we can have a meaningful discussion on that. We share the goals around protecting the planet. We absolutely share those. This is not about climate denial or anything like that. We're sincere in wanting to green our grid. We're sincere on wanting to take actions to protect the planet. But it almost seems like they're not sincere with what they're talking about. But we are sincere, and hopefully we can get some sincerity from them too.
Right now, the $4.5 billion loan that's the offer that's on the table from the feds. They haven't updated that.
No.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
And I just want to ask you before you go about the ferry numbers. This week we got an update on how ferry ridership is looking for the Yarmouth Ferry so far this year. You said last fall you were disappointed in those numbers. So far the ticket sales seem to be up considerably, but actual ridership is still 19% full, that vessel in the first few weeks it was running this year. How do you feel about the numbers?
I think everyone wishes the numbers were higher, for sure. But this is why we'll do the full study. I think the RFP's the process is probably wrapping up to do a full study on the impacts and the costs and the benefits. And but we're committed to that full study so we can fully understand the impact, and we'll go through that process.
Do you anticipate an availability on Monday after your meeting with the Premier Houston, Minister LeBlanc?
We can. So we're meeting, the Atlantic Growth Strategy meetings the full meetings are Tuesday. But we'll have an initial meeting with him on Monday. Okay.
Is there any chance we can find out on Tuesday then what's happened? It's such important files of that meeting.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I'm sure there's there'll be a full media at the end of those meetings, but we're happy to update you in the interim on those files.
Great.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we're at about 12 minutes, 13 minutes here. I'll check in on Zoom. Frank, I believe you had some questions for the Premier. Frank Campbell, the Herald. Frank, can you hear me? We may have covered off his topics. I'll come back to the room. Any final questions in the room? We're good? Looks like you're free to go.
Any questions on the lake, Windsor?
Abbott?
I have some for John Lohr, but do you want to take some as well?
Sure.
Okay. Do you know if he's going to renew his emergency order today?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why?
The order will be renewed. It's a public safety issue. You don't have to go too far back. In 2016, there was a significant fire in Windsor. Took out an apartment building. There was a lot of concern at the time that the damage it could do, widespread damage across the town, and access to water was a concern of the firefighters at that time. They actually had a lot of concerns, and there was quite a couple good CBC stories about it actually on their concerns there. So
if that concern has been in place for that long, why not refill the lake 2 years ago?
absolutely, that's a good question.
But you've been in government for 2 years. Why?
No,
why
that's
didn't
a
you do it in
good
your first
question.
2 years?
It should have been. It should have been, and I've had those discussions with the department as to why it actually got to this stage before certainly before I realized the impact that it had on the water supply. So, but now I know, and now we know, and we will not allow that lake to drain, particularly not during, we're, okay, there's the risk of forest fires might not be high right now, but it's still forest fire season. And I don't think it makes sense to drain it and fill it every time the risk changes. The lake will remain full because that's in the interest of public safety, and that's just the way it is.
The thing I'm having difficulty wrapping my head around on this is we have no evidence of a public call from either the mayor, any member of that council, the local fire chief to have that lake refilled. And in fact, they've all said, we don't identify any safety issue here. So what is it that your government sees that local officials with the council and the fire department apparently do not?
I know this has been a contentious issue down there, and certainly their mayor has had a lot to say on this. And to your point about why wasn't it filled 2 years ago, where was the mayor 2 years ago? I think the mayor should be aware of that fire that happened in 2016. Certainly, once I was made aware of it and the impact and the necessity for for the supply of water that lake provides, once I won't look away from that. There might be others that are willing to look away from that. Imagine the discussion we would be having if we drain that lake now after everything we've been through, particularly in the last few weeks, and a fire breaks out in that area and there's no water. Imagine the questions the media would be asking me about how I allowed that to happen, knowing, now I know, and I'm not going to allow it to happen.
But Premier, it almost sounds like what you're saying, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like what you're saying is that the local council and fire department have been negligent for multiple years by not fighting to have that lake refilled.
You can reach your own conclusion on it, but I mean, certainly concerns were raised to us by firefighters in the area. Particularly in the height of the forest fire season, when fires were burning literally across this province, it was flagged to us, and then once we really understood the potential impact on public safety, then it's an absolute no-brainer to me that lake should be full. That lake will remain full.
Are
That's
you
all the
going to
time we
proceed
have.
with are we going to continue to see 2-week decisions made on this
For now.
for emergency orders?
Yeah, for now.
But you could do something else, right? You could bring in legislation.
Yeah, we'll have discussions with the federal government about what their thoughts are. I mean, my understanding is that federal order is not in place anymore either.
Okay, thank you,
So,
Premier. That's all the
Okay,
time we have.
Thank you.